Hi, everybody. Welcome to It's Busy. Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to It's Busy. And it is episode 586 with Laura Wellington. And Laura Wellington is also known as Doormat Mom on Instagram. So if you guys are out there and you're scrolling like I do sometimes in the morning and I saw Laura, I was like, I have to reach out to her. Laura, hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? I'm really excited to be here. You seem like a blast.
Thank you. Thank you. I like to think of myself as a blast. You know,
Yeah.
life gets lifey, right? It's like so many things pile up. And what do?
Yeah, we get serious and we just, we carry that weight and it weighs us down and before you know it, you're drinking heavily. No, I'm kidding.
Right. Well, it's so funny you mention that because I've been thinking to myself, I'm like, I have been sober for over 19 years. So I'm like, can I take any more? Like, how am I not craving like that alcohol? I really think it's a God thing for me because there's no way that I could be doing this life without alcohol, you know?
Yeah, no, I get it. That's a tough, road to hoe. And I don't, I applaud you for your being sober. I agree with you. I think that God is definitely in the solution for that. And because it is such a tough thing to get through and to conquer. So I don't know how you can do it by yourself. And what is it? That's the resource, but you need to understand what the symptom is,
Yeah.
what's going on. So
And for me, it's all God. It's a whole spiritual thing. But
yeah.
before I go on anymore, you guys, I'm going to tell you because you're probably like, who is Laura Wellington? So I'm going to tell you about her. Her bio is she is known online, as I just said, as the Doormat Mom. And she is an author, media, and technology entrepreneur, an award winning children's television creator. She's the founder and blogger of the celebrity lifestyle blog Thread MDB and TEDx speaker. In her personal life, she was widowed at a young age and is the mother of 5 children. She is created the award-winning preschool television series The Wumblers, which I remember. Her book, Be Careful What You Wish For, is based heavily upon her real-life story of love, tragedy, and survival and rebirth.
Mm.
The Doormat Mom persona is associated with her book, Doormat Mom No More, When Good Parents Finally Say Enough to Their Ungrateful Adult Kids. The book addresses parents coping with estranged or ungrateful adult children, with the author speaking about your own experiences with estrangement from your daughter.
Yep.
And you have other books, which I'm going to just mention because you guys, I think I want to run out and buy them all by the titles. Be Careful What You Wish For, which I just mentioned. What to Do When Jane Knows Dick About Dating If She Wants You. Oh my God, I need to get that one. And The 4-Star Diet, based upon the wisdom of General Colin Powell and other ridiculously brilliant leaders. And last but not least, Jasper's Giant Imagination, which is a children's story.
Yeah.
So your blog posts have appeared in publications such as The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, Thrive Global, and The Huffington Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got quite a resume, my friend.
I've been busy. Stay
You've
busy.
been busy. And
Yeah.
to think, all right, I want to start at the beginning. So your husband, how old were you when your husband passed away?
I was 35. I was 35 and he had been sick for 3 years and my oldest was 9 when he passed away. My youngest was 3. So I was a baby. I was literally a baby. And it shaped my life. It definitely shaped my life. It shaped my understanding of life. And it definitely, if I didn't, if I did it, and I did, but if I didn't value family prior, I definitely valued it afterwards because it's really, I had to pull these kids through. And I had to resituate our life from being um, a whole family to just having one mom and raising four little kids and and then running businesses. He and I had started a couple of businesses. By the time that he was passing away, they were failing, because I had put them in a family member's hands and he just didn't do well running them, so I had to walk back into businesses that were failing and turn them around. um Thank God. You talk about God. So the only way I got through that all was, through God, through my relationship with God. And it was a trying time. It tested my mettle. But it also left me, um, you're battle scarred, you're also battle ready. And, life, just because you go through one tragedy doesn't mean you're not going to face others. But each one helps you become better at facing the next. And so I look at it that way. Um, and I try to remember that when I'm going through tough times. Yeah.
That must have been so hard. You were a professional juggler. I mean, think about all the things you juggled.
I think about that. And I also think about all the incredible people that did step into my life, that were there to help, that are still, I'm still very close with today. Um, that helped me operate my life. I couldn't have done it without those people either. So it's a collective, um, it's a collection of many hands. Many hands create a village. I had a village. I need to raise them. And and I'm so blessed with regards to those people. But it was hard. I'm not going to say it was easy. There's nothing easy about it. And sometimes I think, my God, what was the easy moment in my life? Because I'm waiting to see if that ever shows up. I really am. I am. But everybody has their things, right? So, yeah.
Well, God says, what he's going to give us more than we can handle, right? I mean, and I kind of believe that in a weird way because you keep getting these things and you think, okay, the wind's going to be knocked out of me. I can't do it. But you end up putting one foot in front of the other.
I think that's true. And you know what I also think? This came to me the other day. I was thinking about this. You know how it's written that God protects the widows, right? Takes care of the
Right.
widows. And I think because when you're a widow and your husband, has to go, to be with him, he steps in. He steps in as the
Mm.
father to your children. He steps in as the support for you. He steps in. So when God takes care of the widows, he's stepping in. And so he knows when he's taking that other person, he knows he's going to step in. And if you allow him to, it makes life more, more navigatable. If that's a word.
Right.
But it makes it that way. That's, I believe. So he steps in.
Oh, I totally believe. I mean, I could not. It's It's interesting because in the 12-step program I'm in, they talk about turning your will and your life over to the care of God. And I was always like, but my kids, and but this. And now I think he keeps teaching us lessons till we keep going, okay, I surrender. You get control of everything because I'm obviously not good at doing this.
No, I mean, I think that's it. I think that's the point, right? And it's the
Yeah.
stronger you are to bucket, the harder those lessons are going to come because, at some point he's got to wake you up, right? So he just keeps letting them flow. And you have to finally decide, hey, surrender to it and flow with it and stop fighting it. I think, sometimes we get caught up in the ways of the world and we forget how the world actually operates. And, we spend so much time spinning our wheels through fighting. I honestly think that's the devil keeping us from, fulfilling our purpose. But, in any
Oh, I
event,
love that.
yeah, I think that, we eventually learn. If you're lucky, you eventually learn. If and then you're able to start really, doing what you're supposed to do, you were designed to do here, which may not always make your own life easy, but it doesn't make it any more or less necessary, right? So,
Yeah.
you know.
So which book did you write first?
The 4-star diet. And, it's very funny because all these books, and it's not a diet book, by the way, it's a leadership book for women. Um, but I looked at and the way it came to me is I had gotten sent rep almost like a document and, written by Colin Powell and, called the Leadership Primer. And it was basically a document that he shared with the men that he was in charge of. Um, how to battle life, or how to optimize, war on the battlefield, so to speak. And I looked at it, I'm like, geez, you know what? Women could really use these principles in their own lives to navigate their own lives in this crazy world. And so that was the one I just I superimposed, what we go through as women onto that book. And I took each lesson, I applied it. Um, so it was a great exercise. It's funny, when I started my writing career, um, it was it really was not expected. I had just gone through a bad divorce. I'd been married, I got married in 2009. I was divorced by 2010. Um, and with another child. And and I really was at a low point, you know, um, struggling, struggling. I was struggling. And I decided to take some time off and do not, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was just going to take some time off. I'd sold the businesses, I'd sold the Wumblers, I'd sold, all of it. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I'm a productive person. I do things because I like continuing to build things and for the most part. And everything I do, I have a passion for. I don't do it. Um, but when I started writing, I really started writing during that time, and that book was picked up very quickly by a publisher, and so none of my books are self-published except the last one, which is Purposeful. Um, but I wrote that one, and then um, I wrote the dating book, which came out of me being in Amsterdam. I was sitting in Amsterdam on a trip by
Love
my because
Amsterdam.
I love
Yeah.
to travel by myself. And I was sitting in Amsterdam and I overheard this conversation between two young women. And it was just such a ridiculous conversation about this young man. He wasn't even young. He wasn't a gentleman. But that is what this young girl needed to figure out. And they actually invited me into the conversation because I was sort of like listening in and laughing, and they were like, "Well, how?" And then that's how that book came. And I never wanted to write a dating book, never. But the idea kept going on in my head, and then I got home. I said, "Okay, I'll write it." And sure enough, another publisher shows up. Right? I was like, "Okay," so I put that out. And then the third one, "Be careful what you wish for." It's based on my personal story too, or pieces of it. And it's my love affair with my late husband
Mm.
and the journey I took in raising my children. So there are elements of it that are very true, and then there are elements of it that are, embellished or fabricated, um, but the premise is absolute on point. And that was a very cathartic book but it also a tough book to write because I had to revisit all those
Mhm.
moments and some of them were really hard. Others were, really wonderful. But some were very hard. So, um, and in that book, I include a picture of him and I at the end of it so people could see that, hey, if you missed it, this was like really real. And so I love that book. It's a beautiful story. Um, and then this one, now Doormat Mom, that's when I self-published because I really wanted complete control over it. And I really wanted to control the timing on it. I wanted to control, when you work with publishers, they have all these criteria. And I think in many cases they have to, they really need to update that criteria because it's not applicable to today, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so we live in a very different world. Um, So I wanted control over that book. I didn't want to share more than I felt comfortable with, out of respect for my one daughter, out of respect for our story together. I wanted to establish, why I started this whole, journey. And that was it, because most of my messaging is about, um, not our story, but estrangement overall, and what I've learned along the way, um, from other strange parents and their stories, and how they came to be estranged, and what were the influences, or the catalyst that they became estranged. And it's been, it really has been quite a, in the short period of time, just a little bit over a year. Um, yeah, I feel like I've been on the ride of my life. So, yeah.
I noticed that you just started it in August of 2024, so it's been a year and couple months, and I feel like when I started to become estranged, or I was estranged from, like, somebody just said that they're not talking to me anymore, use words that I had no idea, gaslighting, all this stuff. I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't even know what that means, but okay, I've been gaslighting you. And and then you go to look for help and you can't really find anything. There's a couple therapists that are out there, that said, "Oh, this is what to do, this is what to do." And I feel like, for me at least, there's this darkness in the whole world, and I think that there's
Yeah.
something going on that wants the family unit to not be there anymore. Like, they want to break everybody down and separate them into all their own corners, and it leaves us all feeling so much grief and so much sadness, and you have been through so much grief already.
I recognize that.
I know, I think
Yeah.
about it, I'm like, "Oh
Um,
my gosh, how do you deal with it?"
I pray. Honestly, I pray. I pray. I try to, I try to remember, being grateful, gratitude. And sometimes I cry. Honestly, sometimes I cry. Sometimes I just, I'm very sad. And sometimes it's all real. I mean, I've have compounded grief for so many years. When you're raising four little kids and then five little kids basically on your own, um, uh, you don't have a lot of time to grieve. You don't have a lot of time to grieve. When you're doing it, you don't want to be a hands-off parent. You want to be a hands-on parent. Um, so you have to sort of push that grief back. And then, when you go through, a period of like, where I ended up, a little over a year ago, um, that uncovers that grief plus new grief. And and so you accept that you are human sometimes, and that brave face doesn't always come out, and it's okay not to be human sometimes. But then, I also believe that moving forward is not, a moment's not gonna knock on your door and say, "All right, I'm here. It's time to move forward now." You just have to make a decision. Sometimes you just have to make a decision and just start walking, and then your life will follow. So I think that's how I deal with it. I'm also a big exerciser. Like I run 6 days a week. I walk a lot. I spend time with friends. I try to like engage in life. So yeah, I have a lot of different resources that I do. I travel. I think traveling is great for me. Traveling is great. And sometimes I will travel by myself. I have no problem with doing that. Sometimes it's really therapeutic to not have to answer to anybody or to coordinate, activities, around anybody, just yourself. So sometimes that's really a great way of healing. Um, but those are some of the things that I really do, to keep going. So
But I think I love to travel by myself too. I've been to Amsterdam by myself. I've been to,
say
I've
you've
been to
traveled by
yeah,
yourself.
yeah, and I've been to Croatia and I've been to Medjugorje and I've done all that by myself. But when we are coming, to this time of the year, they call it Bermuda Triangle in some places because it's all these emotions start to come, right? Here
Yeah.
comes Halloween, and then soon after we've got Thanksgiving, we have Christmas, and this family that you want, in my head, I'm just gonna use Norman Rockwell. Like, I always wanted that. I was a single mom. I just couldn't wait until these kids would come home and we'd have this huge family. And then estrangement happens, and it all went to waste. I mean, all my dreams, all of that just disappears.
Yeah, and that makes sense. It's very disconcerting, right? Especially if you were that, had that image of Norman Rockwell in your head, which I did too. I'd watch the Waltons and Little House on the Prairie when I was a little girl, and I'd say, that's what I want for my family, right? Um, but I think you again recognize that that's a real loss, like you're not going to imagine that away. You're not going to throw it under the rug and not feel it. But also realize that you don't have to get rid of those beautiful memories to still, you had those memories, and those memories, those moments were wonderful. And you you don't have to give those up. Those are still yours too. And you don't have to allow the estrangement to ruin those memories, right? Because they were real too. They were real too. But what do you do going forward, right? I mean, what do you do going forward? And I think that's where you have to actually sit down and think about the fact that life ultimately would have changed anyway, right? As kids marry and go off with their spouses, things change. And so it was never going to stay the same. So if you look at it in that way and you look and you say, okay, now I have some time to devote to me. What do I want to do? Like, how do I want to see this Halloween? What can I do to make this special? You still have those choices, right? What do I want to do for Thanksgiving? Sometimes if you go to, if it's not the same and you spend Thanksgiving maybe at not yet your home cooking the turkey, but someone else's, and you're the guest, just pivoting from that routine may open up things inside of you, release maybe giving back to yourself in the sense of having a Thanksgiving that is not, not, it's more relaxing for you. You might say, hey, I don't mind relaxing this. I don't mind being that guest. It may open up opportunities for you to say, hey, maybe although this was good, maybe this is good too. And maybe other things, if I looked at everything that way, maybe this is good. And it starts opening up your life again. So I think that it's hard. I'm not going to say it's easy, but what's the alternative? You only have so much life you're allotted, right? So you do your best sometimes, and some years are sucky. That's all it is. There's nothing you can say about that. Just to recognize this is a sucky year, and but the goal then is to make next year so much better.
Yeah.
Right? So now, yeah, you're at the bottom, looking up. What are you gonna do with that? I don't know if you wanna spend another year at the bottom.
How many years have you been estranged from your daughter?
Just about a year, little over a year. It all occurred in about a year. So, it was not expected. Um, I was blindsided. Um, and I think that's what was so difficult for me was looking at my life with her and her life with me, and what it took um, to create, an environment where she could grow up safely, not wanting for anything, um, loving her. I was a very demonstrative. I would hug my kids. I would, I mean, it's just an everyday thing. You don't hang up the phone without saying, I love you.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, making their worlds, really wonderful. Uh, and giving them the opportunity to go to school without any debt, opening doors that other kids don't have. And not being an absentee parent. It took a lot. And especially under my circumstances, it took a lot. Sometimes I couldn't believe that I was actually still standing at the end of the day. It took so much, and and then to have all of a sudden it change. so dramatically. And on a dime. Um, it was really hard to to be to not have that relationship. You know, sorry. When you devoted your life to having it, to making it easy for them, because you would, you put yourself in front of all the bullets to make sure that they were safe. So, uh, I understand the pain that parents go through when they go through this, and when they weren't abusive, when they weren't neglectful, um, and I think that's honestly, um, it's become such a problem in this our society that when I went through my story and came out the other side, I had to look for other parents that were going through their own. And then so, at that point TikTok was really thriving and I put my first video out on TikTok and it went viral. It went viral. And I think it's because I just hit it head on. I'm not one to mince words um and I hit it head on and I said something that it caused controversy. And so it drew the many estranged adult kids out, but it also drew the estranged parents out. And they had been um, hiding in the shadows, so to speak, because of the shame and the silencing that they endured. Um, and there had been some content creators that had tackled it in their own way, and there were one or two that remained, but they weren't making the dent um, that was raising the volume to the extent that it really needed to set the alarm going. Um, and then as I started to just continue and not, being that I was also a politics and culture commentary writer for a while, I knew what tackling any type of controversial subject could open you up to. So I had training in that. And I knew how to survive all the attacks. And so I didn't pay them much mind. I focused on what's my goal here? What's my goal? And my goal has always been to, and still will always be, to help these parents get through these moments, to raise the flag on this issue. And in hopes of solving it, helping to solve it or walk it back, or um, and that's sort of where I live. So that's where all this passion comes from. And that's why my drive is so um, significant. You know, yourself said in a year you've done a lot. Yeah, in a year I've done a lot. But it's because I've been fighting for mm, fighting for parents um, who didn't deserve any of this, and fighting to change an epidemic that, is robbing our nation of the family, and diverting allegiance to a very dangerous, um, in a very dangerous way, when you remove the parents from a family. Um, and it's, biblically, and
Hmm.
you see that
Hmm.
throughout the Bible. When you remove the parents of the family, when the father does not guard the home, the mother does not guard the home, you let evil in to take over
Yeah.
your kids. And all you have to do is read some of the comments on my video to see that evil is in those comments.
Oh, it's everywhere. Hmm.
So I do think there's a larger thing at play here. Um, and I do think we're at a critical time. much more critical than, some people even realize, as they're writing those terrible comments, and, certain therapists are advocating for estrangement. Um,
It's a joke.
no,
I mean,
it's crazy.
it's crazy. So I'm almost I think it's been 3 years since I've been estranged, and it
Wow.
happened like that, and, and now it's like the person it in a weird way, they're not here, like, all the photos you have in your like, I love photos and taking pictures, and I always get them, and you get them published, and that person is not in any of the pictures, and they're nan and it's like they don't even exist in a lot of ways, and when I hear about therapists, okay, and I'm a coach, I'm a certified coach, and now all these therapists are becoming coaches because then they can work anywhere they want to work. And a lot of them are in their 20s and their 30s and don't have any life experience. Now
Yeah.
I'm sitting here at 57. I've had a lot of life experience, and
Yeah.
so have you, right?
Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
through divorces. We've been through, I've had kids in my house where they were like, "Oh, let's go start egging houses." And I look at my son, "You're not going. You get your butt back here. We're done with these friends." Like it was
Right.
constant, like on fire. And as you mentioned, the grief, it's taken me to now, 57, to finally go, "Oh my gosh, I need to cry." Like,
Yeah.
this has been heavy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very heavy. I mean, and it's supposed to be, because the reality is you're a parent, you're a mother, right? Especially. So being a mother, it's the only relationship your child will ever have where they have been physically connected per se,
Mhm,
coming from
mhm.
your another body, right? So to think that that's not a if it wasn't just a strong bond, a strong connection, they wouldn't be working so hard to break it,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And encourage them without them even realizing it, to break it for them, so to speak. Right? So, yeah, so it's definitely, and I hear such terrible stories, from parents of how theirs happened, what happened. There are certain things that are very, they're copycat things, like, someone marries into the family, and now all of a sudden, the family's estranged, or, that's one of them. Um, there's just a lot of copycat situations, where, it's just gotten even down to politics, and,
Mhm.
like different, or, the old "I owe you nothing," even though you're my mother, the cultural shift away from, having obligations to your elders and people who raised you. There's a big cultural shift, which, you know, um, all that just shreds the seams of, of the family. And it just, and that people don't marry into families anymore. They marry above family, so to speak, right? Where now the family becomes subservient to the new couple. And quite frankly, if you have a working family, you know that that new couple is a family. No one's not denying that, right?
Right.
No, but there's also, the understanding that you did marry into the family, and this family is not supposed to be going away. In fact, this family is your security, because this family is going to protect you, your spouse, your kids, and once you start breaking all those things, you lose that protection. And that's a reality in this world, right? So, um, you weaken you weaken a nation when the families become weak. You weaken a nation, you
And
know?
it's being done on purpose. And I was listening, I don't know, something on Hallow maybe last week or something on one of the apps that I listen to all the time. And I think it was Father Mike Schmitz actually, and he was talking about how like when back in what like I want to say, let's say 100 years ago, you were born into like a society, like your community. You had a big community and there were elders there. Like I remember my grandmother, and I'm sure you remember yours, and they taught us things that our mothers wouldn't, because our mothers were too busy doing everything else.
Right.
And even like for me, my dad's Jewish, my mom's Irish Catholic, so I learned different things from both of them.
Right.
And I think now one side of the family wants to be in control of the whole thing, and the other side of the family just go in the corner. And
Yeah.
they want you to apologize for being who you are. And you're like, wait a minute, I've been this person who actually made that person that you're marrying. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is crazy, isn't it? That, the apology, the apology tour that you have to all of a sudden go on when, you can't have a different thought. You can't have, differences of opinion. You're constantly, you constantly have um, a gun to your head as far as if you just want to be yourself, you can't. And it's just like all of a sudden, what happened? I mean, and you think that part of that is just being, growing up teenagers, they and then part of that but part of that has now become this ch active changing of the culture, whether it be in the schools, um, or which is a lot of it is in the schools, social media, just mainstream everyday living peers. And it's funny because I don't know if you got a chance to see my interview with Dr. Peter Salerno, but he was
no, but
speaking.
I'll have to go see it.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. He addresses this in a way that the same way that Dr. Carl Pilmer, who did the largest estrangement study in the country, um, a number of years ago in 2020. And he found that after age 7 years old, parents have the least influence over their kids. 7 years old, they get the least influence. From seven over, it's their peers, their environment. So when you look at that, parents are getting blamed for everything for estrangement when really their dominant influence is up to age 7. So no one is going to say, and he confirmed it, but Dr. Peter Solano confirmed it. So that is the case. So now look at our world today, and you look at all the influences. It's different than when we grew up. When grew up, we went to school. If we were able to use the phone, we had to wait in line at the house. All right, all right. People would pick up. They'd hear your phone call. Put it down.
There was no
Today,
privacy. That didn't exist.
no, but today, maybe that was a good thing.
Yeah.
Um, but today, they're on their phones constantly. They're connected to the world constantly. Bullying has gotten worse because they're always connected. And they can. You've got the keyboard warriors that, they can bully. They're exposed to everything. Their community is not just their school like it was ours. Their community is the world.
Mhm.
And on top of it, then you've got the new mainstream narrative, that, you don't owe your parents anything. You don't need to be there for your parents. You're smarter than your parents. And, you can go off and have your own life. You're not obligated. There's no like, if your parents make you mad, it's a difference between parenting and a parent abusing, let's put it that, right? But everything is abuse has become the catch-all phrase for everything now, right? So even when a parent parents, it can be thrown into that catch-all basin of abuse, right? Toxicity and narcissism and all. They've got all those words at their fingertips that they throw out, and they really have no understanding of what they're saying. And the cruelty that's placing on to the parent. And so when you think about that world then and how it's influencing them, whether or not they're living in the home with the parent seems to make no difference whatsoever because that influence is real and it's constant because they're constantly on their phones and they have no quiet space. So they don't even have time to figure themselves out many times, right? So they're constantly on. So you wonder why these kids are depressed. You wonder why these kids are suicidal. They're more suicidal than they're more likely to commit suicide than get into a car accident is the newest statistic, right? Die from a car accident. So, you wonder why they're out of sorts. You wonder why they don't know God. Well, God's been taken out of our society, and you can't know God without being quiet, and they're never quiet. So again, go back to, is there an evil element to that? Well, you don't never you're never quiet. You're never going to meet God. So it's like it seems like there's something going on well beyond us. I would think, right? So, you know,
I agree with everything you said, and I think that even putting kids on medication for ADHD, like Adderall, I remember when my son was younger and he had severe ADHD, and the teachers were like, "You have to medicate him. You have to medicate him." And I'm like, "Well, there's addiction all in my family. I am not going to teach him that that is the answer is to take a pill."
right?
And today, every kid is on something. Every
It's
mom is
terrible.
on something. And we are living in this society where nobody is awake. I mean, I think Charlie Kirk's death was the first thing that woke people up to going, wait a minute.
Yeah, yeah. I think so too, because it was so dramatic.
Yeah.
And I again, Charlie Kirk, he runs an organization, Turning Point USA. Turning Point is definitely his turning
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
And so, and I look at that and I say it was so dramatic and he was so young and he was relatable on so many different levels. I could see him as he's the age of my son, right? One of my oldest children. So I could see him as my son, right?
Yeah.
And then other
Me
people could
too.
see him as their brother, and other people could see him as their peer, and other people could see them, as you know, uh, a faith-based leader and so he was able to his persona was so adaptable in many different ways, and he was so intelligent, and he was living a very wholesome, clean, life, and a very threatening life, in many ways. If you were trying to fight against that, he was a big threat.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that definitely was shocking, and to the degree that it happened too, the way it happened was just woke people up for sure. And then the question becomes, how long will that effect stick around? Is that, the effect going to last? Will it last a year? Will it continue? I think it remains to be seen, but I think that it did leave at least a mark right now that are waking people up. So although I hate to say it, enough for anything, I wish every day, I think see videos of him with his daughter, and I see videos with him and Erica, and I see,
Hmm.
and having lived in a situation where I was widowed so young too, I know what she's going to be facing, and I know what she's going to go through, and I relate to it in that level, and how you just wish that you could have that person here to share this with you, because they're the only one that truly, truly understands, the magnitude, right? She's not going to have that. Um, I see her in standing tall as I understand that moment. I also understand what she's feeling at night when she's alone in bed and looking over and knowing that he's never going to be there again. It was such a cruel, horrible thing for for everyone to experience, but mostly for her and her kids, and really on the world stage, which so I applaud her, it's not easy, but it definitely, you know, it was definitely something that woke the world up and woke the world up. So I hope it
But I
stays.
will tell you, I put a viral TikTok up. And I've never been a big TikToker, but I did this. Erica had just given her speech at the funeral and said, I forgive him. And I just did this emotional thing. I have had so much hate.
Oh yeah.
I mean, so much hate. We have so much hate. I
Yeah.
feel like it's like there is this huge, like, thick steel wall that like is
Yeah.
separating the right from the left, and there, how are we ever gonna get it across? I mean, somebody said to me today, they're like, "Can't you work with people that are, like, on the left?" And I'm like, "I don't know that they'd wanna work with me. I'm in the
Yeah.
light.
No.
No, no, they aren't gonna want to. I mean, I am a light seeker. I am not a dark seeker. I don't even understand it. I hate the demise of the family. I mean, kids go to treatment, that's
Yeah.
my biggest field is recovery, and kids come to treatment and all they say at the treatment centers is, "You're gonna stay here and live. You're gonna live in South Florida." I'm like, "Your family's in Minnesota. Your family's in Connecticut. Wherever your family is, don't you think you should go home and be with your family?"
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a real hard thing though, because especially now, because you want that to be, but then you can't force your kids to stay in your vicinity either, right?
No?
So, that's the hard thing too, because I know I've got some kids that live in closer, some kids that, are temporarily away, some kids that are, or may be away fully, but, for the rest of their lives. Who the heck knows? But you can only design your life and do the best you can to remain in your kids' lives, because it's not what it used to be years ago, even though I wish it was. Um, it's not where everybody stays close and like literally, 2 or 3 square miles. It's like, or they live in a compound. It's not like that anymore. Um, so, you have to sort of adjust, but yeah, I don't think you can ever, I would say, as long as my kids are, in my area that I am right now, I'll always keep a house here, I'll always
Yeah.
keep a house here. I'm never going to just like, evaporate. I'm just not that type of person. So, you know,
So I wanna ask you, if you were to give somebody one takeaway to how we can deal with this, because I can tell you this, when you go from being the mom to being like, you might as well be ostracized and put somewhere in Siberia and never spoken to again, and everybody says it's time to take care of yourself. You've got to put the oxygen mask on you. And you're like, but wait a minute. I have never I've been a mom. I mean, I don't even think about myself. I mean, I barely could take a shower when they were babies, right? And now we have to go to this place of like, okay, take care of you. We're grown-ups. It doesn't matter. We're grown-ups. We don't need you anymore. We've got everything we need. And you just take a deep breath and you cry and you say, how do we do it? Was your advice?
I think, you're actually broaching two things in the same sentence, right? So the first thing is, it's hard, even if you have a good relationship with your kids, once your kids leave the nest, all right? It's hard to adjust not being that active, hands-on parent. It's hard because you've been doing that and this has been your life's work. And all of a sudden, your life's work has gone to the next step in their lives, which is what you want them to do. At the same time, now you're saying to yourself, but I miss them, but it was too short a period of time. Like, where did that time go? But I wasn't ready. And but now what do I do? Like, because my job is done. That's even the best. But then you had an estrangement out there. Well, now they're gone. You don't even know if you're going to see them again, right? Or that's going to reconcile, and hopefully you do. But you might not. You might not. You can't wait on that. So I think many people get caught up in being hearing the noise of other people saying, listen, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, you've got to, and that adds a little extra pressure on you, like, yeah, I know I've got to get over this, yeah, I know I've got to move forward, yeah, I know I've got, but I also think there's a period of grief that you need to go through. I think that's okay. I think you do need to be able to get up every morning and but it's okay if you're not feeling 100%. There's a point though, where I'll go back to it, you have to make a decision, because you have to decide to put one foot in front of the other, even if you don't feel like it. And the reason I say that is, in losing my husband like I did so early on, and being forced to learn that it's applicable to estrangement too, because you have to get up and put one foot in front of the other, because you're not going to feel like you want to do it, but you have to, so that you can start walking and finding that next life for you. Because you weren't, you're not just um, a mother, right? You were
Yeah.
always, this period was always going to end. And, um, and you have to think about you got hopefully, I'm living to 120, so I've got a lot of years. Me and age or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
I love that. I
But,
love
um,
that.
but you do have to start thinking about yourself. Like, what is it that you want? Like, what do you envision your life to be? It's a new opportunity. And, the more you rub against, I mean, the more friction you create in rubbing against, this difficult moment, the more you just keep like, but this wasn't supposed to happen. This was unfair. I did what I needed to do for her or him. I loved her, him unconditionally. That's either going to keep you standing still or invite negativity, right? You
Yeah.
want to invite positivity in your life. So you have to accept it. Well, you cannot resistance and happiness can't exist in the same
Nope.
sphere. So you have to just accept it. And then you actively have to sit down with yourself and say, "Okay, what do I want the rest of my life to look like?"
Yeah.
And and keep trying, try the next thing, try the next thing. If that you think this is going to make you happy and doesn't make you happy, then try the next thing, and then try the next thing. um because every day is new and it's okay to figure yourself out, and I hope that people are always figure I hope that people that don't become so comfortable with themselves that they become bored with their lives, so in one way they set you free because you don't have the turmoil anymore. You don't have the arguments anymore. You don't I mean, because in the rearview mirror, you can make your life out to be, but it wasn't so bad. But then really think about it. Were the holidays really that great that,
Yeah.
Ronnie
It
and
was a lot of
Susie
work.
Johnny and Susie were fighting every day, or there was like some family brawl, or were they all like were the occasions really great, or did you sit at the table nearly in tears as your child is like complaining that you're on this incredible vacation and it's still not good enough, or you know what I'm saying? So you have to look at it that way, and you have to say, um, you know, be grateful for the fact that you have the opportunity to even think that you can start again and make a better life for yourself. And that's the point, because
Yep.
because if they come back, you want yourself to be in the best shape possible anyway. So if you don't do it for yourself, do it for the possible moment that they may come back. Put yourself in the best place in your life. And sometimes it's easier. I say it that way because sometimes it's easier. We're so used to doing for our kids that we really can't figure out how to do for ourselves. so, so if you're gonna do it, then do it for that possible moment that they may walk back in. And you say, do it for them in a sense too. I mean, that's the only way you can get there. Go with that.
Exactly. And it's being okay with yourself, that took a long time. Being okay by myself, being able to go in an airport, and you will have people say to you, "Aren't you scared?" "Oh my gosh, that's so scary." And I'm like, "What's the scariest thing?" I don't know. Is somebody really gonna come take me here? I don't think so. I'm an adult and somebody's stealing me, I promise. I'm too expensive, just kidding. But but it's literally all about like finding yourself, and it is scary, you guys. It is, and it is hard, and I do cry like I just did, and it comes out at times, but
Yeah.
let it, right? Just let
Yeah.
it, and then keep walking again.
Yeah. I mean, that's what people do, right? I mean, you have to
Yep.
soldier on, and that's what encourages other, parents to soldier on too, right? And knowing that
Exactly.
there is a community out
Yep.
there that is doing it together, it makes for a big difference. And that's why having these conversations, being in this community, not letting the community go silent again or be pushed underneath the rug again, um, is so important because um, you just allow for the problem to grow in the silence.
Yeah.
And that's what it's been doing. And then all of a sudden it becomes this massive problem that no, it's an unspoken massive epidemic.
Right.
It's crazy.
We're
That's
talking about it
great.
though, aren't we?
Yeah. We're
Yeah.
talking about it now.
The
I mean,
dark doesn't like us talking about it though, by the way. They don't like it. They want us to shut up and not talk about it. And I'm like, well, guess what? I have been sitting here, I'm talking about it.
and you know, the devil will sometimes use the things that you love the most to shut you up.
Yeah.
And you sit there and it makes you second guess and say, you know what? No, that's just the devil using this situation to shut me up. And it's, and that those moments can be really hard, like, but you have to recognize it for what it is, and you just have to keep going, marching on, and laying the groundwork for the next generation. Because you know what? Revert back to Carl Pilmer too, Dr. Carl Pilmer. In his book, that was based on this study. If children are estranged today, or an estrangement that occurs, all right,
Yeah.
affects 7 generations down the line. So if you're going to choose to go estranged, you better realize that your estrangement will affect the seventh generation from the point that you do. You're making a decision on other people's lives. So it's
Yeah.
very important that you learn how to, is this really what you want to do? You know? The other thing too, and I think it's something that we rarely bring up, but the importance of crying and letting your feelings out. People, very easily get sick from holding these things in,
Yeah.
they get sick, they can get, high blood pressure can turn into a stroke, stomach churning all the time can turn into, stomach cancer, broken heart syndrome can turn into a heart attack. I mean, these are all things that we have to really, be concerned with, especially as when it's happening in the later stages, meaning, when you're in your 20s and you have a difficult moment, it's easier to survive than if you were later in your 50s, 60s, 70s. It's based on physiology alone. You can't bear the same amount of a heartache and stress, and you can't do it. So, even in the hardy generations that we grew up in, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
grew up in these
Yes.
generations that were just like, figure it out.
Mhm.
You gotta survive now. We didn't have our emotional support pets back then.
Right.
And,
Exactly.
and so,
As mine are
so,
fighting here in the corner.
yeah, but the thing is, you know what? So we do have to be concerned about that aspect of ourselves too. And, and that's another reason why you have to make a decision to find your joy. And, I really, really believe that if you took a year and treated yourself as well as you treated your estranged adult kids, when they were estranged, you'd be like, man, I should have done this earlier because, because I know the kind of lives that where I'm talking to these parents and what they're telling me. And you always get this, right? From the commenters. You always get, it's not the physical things, it's not the gifts that you bought, and it's not you gave them. It's not, that you tried to buy them with your, no, no, no. All right. That's a really just shallow way of looking at the depths of a parent's love, right? Because the parent wasn't going out working and devoting the money to themselves. The parent was going out working to devote the money to their children. Now you think that that's was because we wanted to buy our kids? No, because we wanted to give our kids wonderful lives. It's just so they turn everything so ass backwards just to fit this, narrative that they want to push. They want to make sure that you know that you are not a good parent so that they can stay in their victimhood and gain whatever they're choosing to gain from that, whether it be attention, whether it be, a fan base, whether it be, I don't know, an ego boost or something, whatever it is that that they need to sustain and, which is drives them to be in that victimhood. They want to make sure that they do, which means that they have to look at you in a certain way. You cannot have been a good parent because
Right.
maybe then their parent was a good parent and they're wrong too. So, they really, really try to villainize you. But, you have to just, that's just a bunch of immaturity. And,
I was
as far
gonna say there's no many grown-ups anymore. It's just really there are no grown-ups. I mean, I feel in a lot of places. I'm like, "Where's the grown-up in the room to say you guys are insane?" You can't
no,
just believe whatever you wanna believe because you wanna believe it. I mean, we grew up because there was right and wrong. I mean, I grew up Catholic, so it was definitely stringent, right? It wasn't like there were a lot of like leeway. There's a lot of gray area here. No, it's black
yeah,
or white,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, there's no black and white, and if you call it black or white, then you're authoritarian. You're
Like,
you're authoritarian. Look, you know what, when people can start saying that they're cats and they start putting litter boxes in bathrooms for kids because they wanna go around and be these furries because they identify as a furry, that's when you know you've lost control of society. When you can actually do that and support that, and then that's when you know that the monkeys have controlled gotten control of the zoo,
exactly.
right? Honestly,
And it
honestly.
happened so fast. It's like estrangement. It happened so fast. It was like, wait a minute, what happened? What we just
But
woke up and there's stories.
did it, or was it growing underneath? It's
Well,
silent.
I think it was silently growing underneath. I think we didn't know about it. I think social media came on, and I don't think any of us understood what that was. I think now we've got AI. I don't know what's gonna come from that. I think we are living in very, very dark times. So either you're gonna jump on the dark side or you are gonna get on the light. So when this is happening to you, like the estrangement, and you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about this loved one, which happens to all of us, I don't know. For me, I grab a rosary and I just say a rosary, or I just pray in bed and I
Yeah,
just say, God, just watch over them. And then I
right.
don't have right. God, watch over them, change me. Watch over them, change me. And it's hard. It is not
Yeah,
easy. And
yeah.
envisioning what you're missing and what's it going to be like in the future and going down all these rabbit holes that we can go down. But it doesn't help.
No, I mean, again, I think that because that attachment is so serious. Attachment is just one that's is an irreplaceable attachment, right? It's just your child. They always say that children don't leave. If they if loving parents, well, they do, and but parents don't leave loving kids. And it's just as hard for a parent to leave a child as and it's actually harder, because it's been proven it's harder for a parent to walk away from a child than it is for a child to walk away from a parent because children are designed to go away. They're designed to get up and leave and start new lives. Parents are not. Right? So parents are there waiting for that those children and watching those children and maybe taking advisory positions in those children's lives, which is what they have to do as opposed to being involved in every little thing. You have to, but when I always laugh when I hear that it's hard for a child. No, it's easier for a child to leave a parent than a parent to leave a child. So when a parent leaves a child, um you have to look at that, like, what was going on there that a parent electively or have to back away from a child, and that does happen too, like 5% of, whether it be take a step back temporarily or take a step back permanently, you have to understand that parent has gone through so much with that child that to do that, it they just can't bear anymore, you know?
And I
So,
see that all the time with and I understand that with the attic especially, because after you keep doing the same things over and you do have to put up boundaries for yourself. And
eh
we were not raised with boundaries. If we had said to our parents, "We're gonna set a boundary," they would have laughed in our faces, and I said, "I could care less that you're setting it, but good for you. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know how it works."
now set the table.
Exactly, exactly.
My father, the first time I came down with pants at house, and then I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, like, and he's like, upstairs, upstairs, change your pants. And
Exactly.
Get a needle and thread. You're not going to school like that.
It will, and it's we have it's it's really difficult. It is. We are in a totally different world,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there is any coming back. I mean, we can all pray for it, and we can all say we want this all to disappear, but I don't think it's going to.
I think the light wins, but what that looks like,
Yeah,
is going to be interesting to see. I think, like, I don't think that God doesn't know this is going on. I think he's allowing it to go on for a reason.
yeah,
And, it's in his perfect timing. It's not in ours, but
yeah.
it's in his perfect timing and what he wants to do with all of this. So I think we have to remember that. And I don't know how this is going to write it, but I'm a human being. I'm not God. He may see something completely different. I can't know it all, right? Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So to just say it's not going to happen, I would never say that. I'd rather have the hope. If I put hope in the world, I think that works better for us than just the negativity, right? So so it's his perfect time. I just need to be to fulfill my purpose in helping. And then, and that's what I have to concern myself with. Let him do the rest of it because I think that's all I can do, is do what I can do. So
Well, I'm gonna take back that it's never gonna happen. I'm taking that back after what you just said because I am gonna have hope. Because I do have hope, and I do believe that good things are gonna happen. I do. I don't know when. I don't know what that's gonna look like. I
yeah.
just know that I can't wait for this to be over because it just feel and I think everybody, even I might even say that I can't speak for the people on the left, but I would imagine they can't be too happy either.
Well, so here's the thing with that. It's affecting them too. So whether or not this started with they're they're more from their psychology, right? They were from the way because I do think it probably had something to do with it. But it's like when you turn a snake loose, he doesn't discriminate on who he bites,
Mm-mm.
and so he's going to bite whoever comes in his path, so to speak. And so I think whether or not they even realize what they were doing, and I generally don't think there are plenty of liberal people out there, liberal thinking that are very nice people, and they don't, they just see things differently than we do, and that's completely okay. But when you're doing that, sometimes you don't realize what you're letting loose. And that goes to conservatives too. Sometimes we don't realize what we're
Yeah,
letting loose.
exactly.
And sometimes we misconstrue. So you always have to keep like an open mind. But at the end of the day, I personally try not to ever look at it as it's a liberal, conservative, or left, right, or Republican, Democrat. I think it's really good. And I think it's evil using those to further divide. And as he's dividing, um, he's he's basically raping us of our kids.
Mhm.
And as we're like looking at each other and the slings and arrows towards each other, evil is now then just scooping them all up. And
Yeah.
so I sort of look at it that way. Um, and I think this is really more of like a good evil thing than anything else. That's how I try to look at it anyway.
Well, you articulated that much better than I did, and I will definitely say that, and I just you know, I know we all love our kids no matter what, no matter where they are, no
Yeah.
matter what they're doing, and if they talk to us or they don't talk to us, and I think that the biggest part of that, I think that I'm gonna take away is that even though I love them so much and they're not talking to me, that doesn't mean I can't live my life. And it doesn't mean I have to live my life in the doghouse and I don't have to live my life feeling like, what did I do? Like you'll have people that are like, what do you think you did to cause this to happen? And that's such a waste of time.
Yeah, it truly is. But you get stuck in that cycle for a while. You
Oh,
get
I've
stuck
been there. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
in such because that gets pounded in your head all the time, and you got to stop trying to figure that out You got to stop. Did you do the best you could? Yeah. Did you make mistakes? Yeah. Did you do your best to apologize and then make a remedy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you, did you, obviously you care. If you do abusive, you wouldn't, if you're really truly abusive, you really wouldn't have this amount of heartache that you're carrying with you every day. You're waking up every night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and yeah, so that would not happen. That's not guilt. That's just sadness. That's like, you can't believe. Um, so at some point, you just have to, you have to allow the emotional, the factual to give, the emotional to give way to the factual. What are the facts here? Can your kids survive on their own? Yeah. Are they thriving on their own? Yeah. Are they, yeah. Well, that didn't just happen because they were abused in a household that, somehow they were navigating the world, knowing how to do that. Who taught them that? Who gave them the script, at least to start? Right. So, I mean, it's all thing. These are all important questions to ask yourself, remind yourself. So if your kid is surviving and doing well, they're finding their lives, they're capable of navigating a world, they can hold down a job, and they're growing, they're following their purpose, then frankly, whether or not they talk to you again is already proven that you've done a good enough job. All right.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
that's what you're supposed to do. So if they become your best friend along the way, great. If they don't, then there's nothing you can do about that. So,
No.
um, I mean, so that's sort of like how I try to remember it when I'm getting into those moments of, geez, I mean, I really thought we would be, close for the rest of our lives. I remember saying this and one person skewered me for it, but I'm going to say it again because I believe it. Some kids are meant to stay in your lives forever and other kids are not. And
Yeah.
you can assume that all the kids are supposed to stay in your lives forever. Some kids are, and they'll come in and out, and maybe some will, stay in your life for longer in the beginning and then, less in the end. And some kids will stay consistent all the way through. But every child has their own role. And so I think that's a very fair statement. If you look at it that way, then you're able to deal with when they're gone, a lot better. And you do have to live. You have to live your
Yeah.
own life because, you weren't just going to be a mother. And I think that people have to start getting away from defining themselves as estranged parents. You were not estranged parents, okay? You're a parent, you're a person, you're a parent, and you have an estrangement going on in your life. That's a different way of looking at it. It's not your definition. It's a part of your life, but that's not you. And I think we have to start recognizing that again. Like, we are people, we are parents, we have an estrangement happening.
When did we start living life like we were at a doctor's office filling in a form? Okay. When did that start to happen? I don't remember, again, being younger, like everybody identifying what they were as though we were going to the doctor's office and I'm going to check this box and I'm going to check that box. Like our mothers would never have done that. And my mother always told me, I am not your friend. You're going to have enough friends. I am your mother and you only have one.
It's when we started doing the gentle parent. Here's the thing: when gentle parenting and all that crap started coming in, where you have to be your child's friend, that changed because our mothers never wanted to be our friends. Our
Mm-mm.
grandmothers never wanted to be their friends. Right? It was not your. Right. I mean, that's not your role. I mean, you
No.
you can adapt to being friends to a certain degree once they're grown up, but you should never, I don't think a child should ever lose their respect for their parent as being a step ladder above them because they're wiser. In certain ways. That doesn't mean they're wiser. That doesn't mean that the adult child isn't intelligent. Doesn't mean the adult child won't be right on certain occasions where you're wrong. That's all fine. But there's a respect that you always give your elders. When we lost all of that, when we started trying to become our children's friends, when we started listening to the fact that, you have to care about all of their feelings all of the time, And to the extent that you can now not have any of your own. And if you don't do that, you're being abusive, you're being toxic, you're being a narcissist. All the letters that they use and words that they use. That's when everything started going haywire, and I think that's when we started losing the culture, you know. That's why I think there's been a bit of a shift back to authoritarian parenting because what's been happening hasn't been good. And I think that's where you might see the revival, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, that's where you might see the revival. I also think you might see the revival in these conversations and having, mothers pushing these conversations now because, they're pushing the light back in.
Yeah.
They're pushing the light back in. And they're now we're joining forces and pushing the light back in, which is why I get concerned sometimes with people who create this type of content becoming competitive because I see in certain they're becoming somewhat competitive, and I think that works against
For
what
sure.
we're actually supposed to be doing because if we're going to bring light back in and we start fighting amongst ourselves, start the infighting, then that just sheds darkness. That doesn't shed light, and we lose credibility. So we sort of slow ourselves down. Yeah, but that's all about ego, right? So you can't, I look at that and I'm like, this is not good, you guys, So I try not to get involved in that. And I've had my opportunities be dragged in and I've always stepped aside. I've always, because I I want to represent in those situations especially I myself in the way I would conduct myself in the way that I conducted myself throughout my life with my kids. Because I can't say I was this type of mom and then display character that sort of indicates that
Yeah.
I'm a different person than that, right? So I will never attack or even compete with another creator because I don't look at it this way. I'm just looking as, how can I bring the light and help, you know? So,
Do you know what you made me think of? And then I know I'm gonna let you go because we've gone way over. Is that I thought I was just thinking about like my Mimi and my Nana, they teach us certain things like let's just say a recipe. Like they teach you how to make and my grandmothers did not make sauce. I wish they did, but we weren't Italian. But I always wished I'd had that. But they did teach me certain things. And you think about the grace that they had, and they didn't really grovel, and they didn't really wanna get into it with anybody and had to prove themselves to anybody about who they were. So I think maybe not that they ignored, but they just took care of themselves, and I think see what happens. Like, literally see what happens.
right. That's the open the door.
Yeah,
Open the door. The door will open. Stay positive, attract positive energy. The doors will open. New people walk into your life that want to
yeah,
be there.
yeah,
So this is an opportunity. And it's an opportunity for your children too to grow, or your adult
yeah.
children to grow. And sometimes all you do is you need the space to allow that. See, I have faith. I have faith that I know what I put into my daughter. And I know that whatever she's going through right now, um, I, I, I can't say why she's going through it, but I have faith knowing what I put in based on that and my belief system that she will write herself and we will write ourselves at
Yeah,
some point.
yeah,
So, and, um, and again, that's going to be when, in his time. So
yeah.
but I have strong faith and, in that, because I know what I put in her. I know what we had. And it doesn't help me not thinking that we won't. So I have faith in her. Um, I, you know, so I do. I have faith in her.
I love that. So I'm gonna say I have faith in him, And I do know that God is good, and we just don't know. And it has to be hard for them too. I have to imagine it cannot be easy. So, we all just have to let go a little bit. Nobody knows. God's the only one, which you've mentioned many times, which I love, that God is the only one that knows. And we just have to surrender sometimes and just say, yeah, this is uncomfortable. And we live in a society where everything's comfortable. You want to
Right.
get something, it shows up at your door in 2 minutes. And
Right.
you know what? This is uncomfortable and we can't control it. We can't change it and we can't cure it. So we got to just sit back and ride the ride
And grow in it.
and grow and book more plane tickets.
Yes. Yes, that's what we need to do.
Right? We have to go
Yeah.
we get because our grandmothers wouldn't have asked us what we were doing. Like, if ask our mothers, my mother, which my grandmother would have been like, "I'm going for 5 months. I don't care. Bye."
I know.
And we can have that culture again. Laura, it has been such a pleasure getting to know you. I hope we should do this again about something else. I don't even know. Maybe that dating. That could be fun.
Okay, we can do that. Anytime, anytime. You're great. And, like I said earlier, I think we're gonna be friends, so,
I think
um
we are too. And so, you guys, if you're out there and you want to learn more about the Doormat Mom and all of Laura's books, it's in the description. All you have to do is click it. It's very easy. And you guys know this, you are not alone and there's always light somewhere. So go find it. Take care, everybody. And I will see you next time.